Welcome to the Purpose Over Profit podcast with Darren and Chris, where each week we discuss what it takes to live a life of purpose and profit and explore the lives of people trying to achieve just that. Welcome back to the Purpose Over Profit podcast. As always, I've got Chris with me this week. How you doing, mate?
Very well, thank you. Looking forward to this chat with Steven.
Good stuff. Yeah, as Chris alluded to, we've got Steven Clarke, host of the Scottish Property Podcast, property investor, thought leader in the property education space now. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me on, mate. Really appreciate it. I love the name of this podcast. It definitely resonates with me as well.
Well, good stuff. I mean, I guessed about 3 episodes ago, basically like put a grenade under the name and kind of, what was it? It was Profit Follows Purpose or something.
Yeah,
that's what he suggested it was, but there we go. Hey, we're going to keep it. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Steven. For the people that are listening to this just now, can you just give a bit of background for people that maybe don't know you, a bit about yourself? What do you do?
So yeah, I'm a property businessman, I suppose, based in Dunfermline in Fife, and I started in property kind of amateurishly for the first 10 years. While working in the oil and gas industry, and when my daughter was born in 2016, I just kind of felt this bigger need to kind of make my life about her and not miss out on her childhood. So burnt the bridges, threw the towel in, and then went full time into the property businesses, so to speak. So yeah, that's made me trying to be professional for the last 5 years. Whether it's working or not, I don't know.
Yeah, you've done a phenomenal amount in that time as well, Steven. So like I obviously kind of looked at you before I got into investing as an experienced investor, and it's interesting. I think I started investing about 2017. So not long after you went full time, it sounds like. But yeah, you were kind of thinking that you'd been kind of amateurishly investing up until that point. Is that right?
Yeah, I just completely didn't understand that there was a community around, property investors and, a bit of a network and, Facebook page and stuff that was available. So yeah, just, aimlessly kind of plodding through, doing my own thing, figuring out, and then thinking, unsure if I was doing it right or doing it wrong, and just kind of, that works. Okay, that didn't work. Sell that one. Okay, try and keep that one, and just winging it, making mistakes along the way, and I just enjoying it. I have a love of property, so it was quite fun just to try and suck it and see what happens.
And for those of us who aren't invested in property, how did you fall into it? I feel like you sound like you kind of accidentally fell into it. How did that all happen?
No, I've kind of had a kind of weird obsession with property since I was very young. So the minute that I was in a kind of stable enough, when I say stable enough job in career, I was a second year engineer apprenticeship with an oil and gas company. And the moment they kind of suggested that I can get overtime on a Saturday, and I kind of worked that out, that straight away that means I could pay a mortgage, and went for a 1-bedroom flat in Inverkeithing, like instantly, at 2021, just to get on the ladder. So yeah, there was always a kind of a purpose to it. Not much of a direction, not much of a clue, not much of an end goal. Just kind of thought originally that it was, it was a bit of way of creating wealth, giving you a bit of freedom, a bit of flexibility to retire early or have a retirement pension pot or have a better life. There was no kind of real design and real kind of goal or focus at the time. Unlike guys like Dan and Gillian, who start off a few years ago and they can smash it because they've got a clear goal, a clear vision, and they can go for it. They can ramp up. I'm just aimlessly plodding about thinking that, this is all right. I'm plodding away. But I quickly got hit with a financial crash in 2008 after my first two. So quickly got stung by property, and it took me a wee while to build back up from that by flipping properties to kind of get that cash pot built back up.
Yeah. So, and where do you think that obsession came from then, or that kind of interest in property? Was it just the financial element of it, kind of pension, or was there anything else? Like, I know you're quite hands-on. We're very different in our approach. Like, I see your Instagram stories. You're on site every day, mixing it with the guys on site, knocking down fireplaces. Where I always joke that I don't know what end of the screwdriver to use, but kind of was there a hands-on element, kind of getting into a refurb, kind of seeing something, taking something that looks pretty tired and poor and bringing that up to a good standard?
Yeah, I mean, I never really had any friends or family who owned property, had property portfolios, done much. It was mainly just homeowners that owned their property. But I did have 2 friends who I grew up with, and I was probably around the age about 15, 16, maybe 17, that one of my friend's dads had came over from Holland after sold their business and brought, I think it was about 10 shithole flats in Glenoffice, like horrendous, like 10 grand flats, rented out to the kind of, well, you can imagine what tenants and customers are attracted. And I remember kind of doing some weekend work for him when I was about 15 to rip out a flat and, get 30 quid cash in hand for taking dirty nappies that were smeared all over the wall off the wall and putting in a skip and thinking. But I remember obviously sitting there doing the labour and asking him, like, so how much is this? 10 grand, and this rent's for £375, and get paid directly from the council. And thinking to myself, that's pretty good. Like, after a few years, that's bought and paid for, and the rest of it's profit. So that was a bit of an influence. And then one of my other friends at the exact same kind of time, he done the polar opposite. He had a career in the RAF. So we were up at high school in Cooper St Andrews. So Looker's RAF base was nearby, and one of my friends that had kind of done his 22-year service left the RAF and started up property. And he was flipping. He was always flipping high-end houses. He's always getting his hands dirty. He was always doing as much of the renovations as he could. And I remember always seeing the kind of houses that he sold on that were, started off as absolute wrecks and be selling for near St Andrews for 600 grand at the time. And he used to drive about in like unassuming Vauxhall Cavalier, like an absolute bucket, always in work gear. But I knew the houses he was selling, they were worth, over £500,000. I thought, well, that's pretty cool. He's a well-off guy, but doesn't need to show it. So there was a couple of influences. And then I think around the time my granddad died at 62, and he was a plumber, and he never got to reach retirement. So I think, kind of reflecting back on this the last couple of years, that might have had a bit of kind of putting all these little pieces together off a couple of outside influences, plus what happened to my granddad, thinking that there's got to be something better to do with life rather than just working all the way through and not having a retirement or not getting much of a retirement. So I think there was probably a bit of mindset shift back then.
Yeah, hat off to you in terms of having that awareness at kind of 21, 22. Like, I was still pissing my money into the wall at that stage, using my student loans up and buying TVs, which would be quickly outdated in 6 months.
I have to admit, mate, my first refinance I spent on going to Ibiza when I was 21. So yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to say as well. Like, even just listening to you, like, you were saying 15, 16, you had two friends, two influences, and I'm just thinking, like, people I knew at 15, 16 were thinking about buying cars, saving up to buying cars, or drinking Mad Dog in the parks, all these kind of crazy things, all this kind of stupid stuff like that.
Well, that's exactly what we were doing as well. But I just remember these two things, and not that like the one of them was a girl whose dad had the kind of portfolio. She didn't follow in his footsteps, and the guy whose dad was renovating big houses, he's went on a wrong path. I think he's a drug user in a bad way. So none of my circle of friends or influence had took any note of that. I just remember kind of seeing their fathers and what they did and thought, I like that. That's something interesting. I've always had this little interest in property, and then these two kind of outside influence. I thought, you know what, that's quite unique.
But that totally reminds me of, is it Rich Dad Poor Dad? That kind of concept, yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad. But you're looking at a different friend of the uncle, is it? And you're looking at what he's doing, and you're kind of learning off him as well. But then you've got the complete opposite. And Lookers is quite a place as well to go as well, with that kind of RAF base, that kind of community where it's all locked down as well. So that kind of different influences is fantastic at such a young age as well.
I never actually thought about that, Chris, until you just mentioned it. But yes, if I think about my own dad, funny enough, no one in our family had been to university, and he drove me down to go to university, which I lasted 6 months in Aberdeen. And it was always this kind of corporate, oil and gas. My dad, took 25, 30 years to work his way up, and all the graduates would come in and go above him and become his manager within a couple of years. So he forced me down this kind of corporate, education background, which was never going to be for me. And it took me a long time to figure out my own path and go, no, this isn't for me. This is what I want to do. But it's quite interesting you say that, 'cause I've never thought about the fact that it is quite relatable to Rich Dad Poor Dad.
So thinking about you've been working in oil and gas for how many years? Like since you graduated, yeah?
So yeah, I went to university first, and then left probably 2004, started my apprenticeship at an oil and gas company, done my 4 years there, and then went through different engineering roles before going offshore about 2011, 2012.
Right, okay.
And up until, I got married in 2012, so right at the start of my kind of offshore career, I'd got married. And there was always a bigger purpose for me for making money. It was always I never were as my income increased, my lifestyle never really increased. I just bought a bigger property or had an extra flip on the go, or one that was extra to the portfolio. So there was always a bit of purpose to try and make more money, and that was the route of chasing the offshore kind of subsea engineering silly money that I could bank quickly, invest in property, build a bit of a portfolio, then just jack it in. If I knew my lifestyle didn't increase, then I wouldn't be reliant on that big offshore money. I could be financially free quite easily. So yeah, that was always the kind of purpose, but it kind of changed when Maya came along. It was like, no, that's too long.
Yeah, so like that's really interesting because I didn't appreciate that. Like, you'll be aware, it's like jack the amount of education stuff that's out there for property investors. Jack your job in 6 months, go and live on the beach. 0 to a million. You don't need any funds. Yada yada yada. We've heard it all, and that's really attractive to sell stuff. But you're talking about you had a strategy. I know you say like describing it as a purpose, but you had a long-term play, as in I'm going to go and earn more money than what I've got going out. So you're going to have a surplus each month, and you're going to use that surplus to start building up a cash pot to invest in property over 4 years. So that 4 or 5 years, talk to me about, I guess, where you were and your level of comfort before you took the decision to kind of leave the big bucks of offshore to kind of moving into property investment. Because I know, having recently done it in the last year, it never feels like enough. There's never a right time. But when you have to go, ultimately you have to make the decision and go and kind of back yourself to go and do that.
Yeah, so it never ever worked out quite as it planned for me, because my first year or year and a half offshore, I remember going to my manager at the time and kind of demanding a pay rise, because in my 4th year of my apprenticeship, 10 years earlier, I'd actually earned more money than I did offshore in the first year.
Oh, really?
But it was because I was in my 4th year. I remember in my 4th year, I had my first kind of 2 flips that I did probably just after the crash, maybe 2009-10, and so I pretty much worked night and day, 12-hour shifts Saturday, Sunday for overtime, just to go and buy the boiler, buy the floor, and buy the carpets for the refurbs to sell them on. The deposits were on the credit card, so I had to work like hell to get the money together. So obviously I used that. I didn't tell my manager that I'd worked high level in overtime, but I proved my P60s and go see and got a pay rise. But so it never ever kind of really worked out the way I planned on. But what the route to go through the kind of the subsea service hand company that I was with was to get into the subsea BOP equipment where the big bucks were, and I knew friends who had kind of went that route before me. And so it was get a few years experience offshore, make a reasonable bit of money, but more time off. So the good thing about working where I was there was plenty of time off. You were kind of ad hoc to different projects. So if you're banking a salary, just it was a basic salary, which I mean, on offshore terms is really, really low, but normal terms is a flipping full-time salary to sit at home and do nothing. So I ended up just, having different property projects on the go while I was home. So it was nice, but the money wasn't where I needed it to be. So I'd applied for a subsea engineer's role with Transocean, and this was 2015. And I remember speaking to a couple of friends of mine who had followed that same path. And when I said who was interviewing me, they said, "You jammy fucker, you've actually got the international guy who's interviewing you." So straight away, the HR woman came in and they offered me the job straight away. And it was like, so your starting salary is £11,000 per month. And I'm sitting there like, keeping a straight face going, yes, my plan has come together. What I've planned out, it's going to happen. This is you get this was the trainee salary as well, 11 grand a month. So I was thinking, fucking yeehaw, here we go. I'm going to be able to bank, 4, 5, 6 grand a month, like extra. Every few months there'll be another flat getting bought. There'll be something here we go. So then left the interview process and it was saying, okay, we'll be in touch in a few days for your medical. Once that's in, you can hand your notice on your company that you've been with for 14, 15 years. No problem at all. Here we go. And it never ever happened, never materialised. So after 5, 6 weeks, I got back in touch, and then the guy says, "Oh, it was no one in touch. They've stopped recruiting externally. It's internally they're moving people about." And the little did I know, this was the start of the last oil and gas downturn, price crash. So that was me going to be waiting for years until we went through redundancies, payoffs, oil price low, and then recovering back up. I probably could have done it again. And I thought, and that started to plant the seeds like, nah, this has not worked out the way that I had planned. And at the same time, myself and my wife had been going through IVF for 3-4 years to have Maya. Failed attempt after failed attempt, and Maya was the very last attempt at the free kind of NHS one that you get. So the end around this period, end of 2015, my wife was pregnant, and I was going a lot of the trips that I did throughout this time of her pregnancy. Bearing in mind we've tried for years, we've went through IVF, and I'm missing in action every time there's a scan. I'm away. I'm down in West Africa and Ivory Coast, and had to go and pay for private scans every time I come back just to be a part of it. And I started to think, nah, I'm missing out on the things that we've wanted for so long, and we've tried and we've jumped through so many hoops. Why am I putting that on hold for what? For a career to make, a better salary. So the penny had started to drop. But the second that Maya was born, I'd went in a property training course in 2016, and just kind of opened my eyes up to what was possible. So all the things I'd been playing about it for the last 10 years, and oh yeah, well, I've bought one, okay, I've kept it, I've rented it, I didn't sell it, I've rented that one, I've sold that one, I made a mistake on that one. All the stuff that I was fiddling about, you went in a proper education course for 3 days and realised that, shit, everything I've been doing has been right. I could have 10x'd, I could have went bigger like you guys have done, like quickly after getting the education. So it gave me that bit of comfort. And obviously then learned that you could use private investors finance with a bit of track record and stuff, which I already had for 10 years. So the moment I kind of had this kind of epiphany, plus Maya was only 2 weeks old, I just thought straight away, I came off the workshop and was like, nah, I'm out. I'm completely jacking it. And I managed to get away for 3 months without going offshore when she was born. And I just, because it was ad hoc and it was quite flexible, I did say to my employer, I said, look, I've just had my wee girl. If there's guys that are shouting about days and wanting more work and wanting to earn more money, give them it to them. I'm happy with the time off and the basic salary. And it was probably the worst and best thing I did, because I spent the first 3 months at home, did a 2-day trip offshore, or 3-day trip offshore in the North Sea to help someone out. And when I was away, I hated it. And I've never ever hated my job. And I thought, do you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm not. And I remember getting like a real anxious feeling. And we were sitting in our house that we'd renovated fully for Maya being born and stuff like back to bare brick, 3-bed detached house. It was what we thought was the family home. And I remember kind of sitting there thinking, she's going to smile. She's going to start smiling anytime soon. I'm going to miss out on it. And my wife's looking at me like, and I'm like, I'm not missing out on that. And she was like, but it's just smiling. I'll send you a video. I'll send you a picture. I'll FaceTime you, whatever it was. I was like, no, I'm not missing out on that. And she was like, but what do you mean? Like, what are you going to do? I goes, I'm not going offshore. And I was adamant I wasn't going offshore. And this was a Friday. It got bumped to the Monday. And on the Saturday morning, we're playing with Maya, and are we, next to me, and she started smiling. And I'm like, I'm welling up. There's tears in my eye. And I'm like, I would have missed out on that. If that trip had never got bumped on the Friday, I would have missed out on the first little milestone of my daughter. And I was instantly, my mind was made up. I was like, I'm throwing the towel in. But so this kind of caused a lot of grief between me and my missus at the time, because she's went from, IVF, a struggle. She's went on a maternity leave for a year. She's went right mothering, and we've got our house, we've got it ready, we've got a small mortgage, and we've built up a chunk of money with the renovations over the years. We've got a small mortgage, we're comfortable. And now I'm away to go and say, no, we're throwing the towel in. And also
just you throwing a grenade in, just like you've not been through enough over that time. Yeah,
I'm double barreling. I'm putting 2 grenades in, because I'm saying, well, do you know what? This is not the kind of house for us right now. She was like, what do you mean? I says, well, we need to get a bigger mortgage, because if I throw the towel in now, I can't get a bigger mortgage because I won't have any salary for a while. So the house went on the market and sold closing it within a week, sold. And she's like emotional wreck, crying constantly at the thought of leaving the house that she's designed, and kind of came up with the exact way we wanted it to move to, like, right, we want a 5-bed detached house, I want a double garage, we want this. So we pretty much more than doubled our mortgage within that first couple of months. And the mortgage just went through at the time in September 2016, a few months after Maya was born, that I jacked it offshore altogether and just didn't go back.
Stephen, I have to say, Stephen, there is so much in there for everyone to listen to. It's been like, there's honestly, like, just listen to the thing about offshore. Like, I've known people at offshore, I'm sure you have, Darren, as well, and my brother-in-law works in the Merchant Navy, so he's away a lot. So people imagine the money's fantastic and that's what it's all about. But you're bringing it back to even just the stress, I guess, of the IVF, going through that process and being the last chance and then it happening. That's phenomenal. But then even just being at home for the smiling. And I've seen a note from your Instagram stuff where you said that there's a free seeker trip, which you might want to clarify for our listeners. And it's not as glorious as it sounds. Like, you'll be bunking up with loud snorers and you're just wondering about the family all the time. And I've heard that from my brother-in-law, who's now moved up the ranks, but he was saying sometimes you're bunking and you just don't get a sleep because it's constantly, the engines are going, there's some kind of noise, so it's quite painful. But I think it'd be good for our listeners to understand like what is a free seeker trip, and that emotional journey you've been through from leaving it, how was that for you, and how was that for your wider family, and did people expect you to make that jump, or was that a shock to them?
Yeah, so the free seeker is if you know, a lot of the rotations offshore, particularly in the North Sea, is 2-week trips. And if you go for a 3-weeker, it's a free seeker because it's horrible. That extra week, just 2 weeks kind of flies, and it isn't as bad. You're kind of, after you get over the first week, you're in that kind of, oh, it's okay, I'm on the chopper on next Monday. It's kind of it's within kind of counting distance. Whereas 3 weeks always just seems that bit longer. And then obviously international trips was 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever they were. But a 3-weeker offshore was a horrible trip because they're shittier rigs, they're noisy, the weather's, you're getting battered with waves and wind and waiting on weather constantly. So the rig motion's like really bad all the time. You're on a drilling rig, so there's always banging. Like if you're on night shift or day shift, you're not getting a great sleep. You're getting woken up kind of constantly. Like you say, you're sharing a cabin with somebody, and you imagine it, then you end up on the same shift. So you're 12 hours working, you're 12 hours in a cabin with someone else. It's just, there's a lot of sacrifices that you make working offshore or working away and stuff like the Merchant Navy that I think people will see that, oh, but you're getting $100,000 a year or you get a phenomenal salary, but it's like, but what's the sacrifice you're making? Because when you go off out there, you've got to kind of switch off mentally to your life outside this rig. So anything that happens outside this rig, like family, you can message and you can maybe go on the phone and stuff, every day, but you're going through the motions. You switch off. If oh yes, I saw your mum today, or I saw your gran, and you're just kind of like, oh yeah, how is she? You're not listening to the answer. You don't want to think about it. You just want to just go in one ear out the other. You're going through the motions, because if you start thinking about how your gran is, you go, oh, I miss my gran. She's not maybe got long left or whatever. You're now thinking about being away. So you switch off to your family, and then when you're home, you've got quality time, but then you've also got that doom and gloom of, well, in 2 or 3 weeks time or 4 weeks time, or if I'm ad hoc, I'm waiting on the phone going at any moment saying, yeah, you're going away on Monday, there's a trip away again. So there's a lot of sacrifice, and it's always the same. When you're home, there's nothing on. When you're away, there's a birthday party, there's a wedding, there's a funeral, there's a the Christmas, whatever it is, you always miss something when you're away. But when you're home, it's like, oh, what have I got planned for the next 3 weeks? Nothing on. Fucking typical. So yeah, so there's big sacrifices to make. I think a lot of people probably won't appreciate. They'll just kind of see the bigger glory, the bigger picture. But for me as well, I never ever saw any happy endings. Like, I never saw the guy offshore. Like, there was always older guys offshore in higher positions, OIMs in charge of the rigs, or tool pushers in their late 50s, 60s. And I'm thinking, why are you still here? You've been making 150, 200 grand a year for fucking your whole career. Why are you still here? Why are you still working? And it's, oh yeah, well, I'm on my second divorce, or I've been divorced and the family home's away, and then they've got no reason or purpose to be at home because they've been away for 25, 30 years of their life, that they don't have a relationship with their kids. Their kids have left, went to university, left the house, got their, they don't get on because there's no bond with them because they've had to work away for half their life. And I always that kind of always sunk to me and thought, nah, that's not the route for me. That's just, there's a means to an end here. Let's do it as quick as we can until the family comes along, and then there's a better, hopefully figure out a bigger purpose then.
So you're late 2016. You're handing your notice. You're kind of you've got the house mortgage agreed with your full-time salary, which in hindsight is something I should have done because we were going through a house move at the moment.
Same.
But yeah, so I can relate to the kind of the rationale for that. It sounds like your mortgage is taking a jump, so financially you're under more pressure at a time where you're going to jack it in. And you said, as your wife Kelly had said, this is like, she's obviously new mother, things are starting to settle down, you've got your house sorted, and then it's on the market, you've moved again. So talk to me about the pressure, even like, I guess financially, where was your portfolio at? Was there any risk that you were taking, or could you make that move across quite comfortably, or was it a case of not actually the pull for being around Maya, Kelly and the family and not missing out on stuff, was that much greater, and did that say, do you know what, it doesn't matter if I salary just now, do you know what, this is going to more than make up for it?
Yeah, the pool was so much greater. I thought I was going to miss out on, but there's a couple of things I did that would probably make, okay, that made it a little bit easier. I just sold a flip, so I think there's about 22 or 23 grand profit in a flip, I'd sold, the tax changes had just started to come in. I think they were taking effect as of 2016. So there was always this, I need to get the properties in my own personal name and start a limited company and all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot of changes going on at the time. So I'd sold a property in my own personal name. So there's a bit of leftover cash in that. And then I asked for a redundancy package. So when the 2 days I went offshore, the 3 days I went offshore, the moment I came back, I asked for a redundancy package and I said, are there any redundancies coming? Now, this was the start of the oil kind of price going down, and they can always kind of predict these things. So she said, no, don't, there isn't at the moment, but hold off, I'll be in touch with you within a couple of weeks. So within 2 weeks, she was in touch and says, yeah, we're looking for voluntary redundancies. This got sent out kind of corporate wide. And I had a number in my head, and the number in my head was 25 grand. And if I got 25 grand, I was happy. Just the top, that was topping me up. And I knew I could just give it to Kelly and say, there's a couple of years of payments in the mortgages, bills, everything covered, taken care of. You take it. I'll take the pressure completely off you. You won't have to doubt me. You won't have to ask me where the money's come from. I can just get on with it. Now, in hindsight, this was a fucking really stupid move, because it was the worst thing I ever did was jack my job and have money in the bank and start full-time in property, because I didn't get that resourceful. And I had to a few years later after that money had ran out. So there was a comfort of knowing there was money in the bank. There's my redundancy came through. Give it to Kelly. The bills are taken care of. I'm going to go at this hard. And on the course that I went on, the 3-day course, I met a guy who I ended up going into business with, and he worked offshore as well and had the kind of same vision, the same plan. And we kind of sat down and said, well, why don't we just build up this company with 50 buy-to-lets? Like, quickly, we've both got a lot of experience for 10 years. We now know we can use private investor finance. You've got some money, I've got some money. Let's go nuts with it. And so we set about that. And I thought, well, I'm okay. I don't need to take money out for a couple of years, and neither did he. So he said, well, I'm going to keep sticking with my offshore because it's really, really good money. He was on good money. I wasn't on that great money. So I said, well, you stay. I'll keep doing the refurbs and managing the projects in the background. So we kicked off. He injected cash into the business straight away and asked it on shore, just quit the job, and was doing the first 3 flats we bought. But we quickly realised this was the start of the market kind of rising, and inflated home reports and then offers over going a bit silly on the market. So we kind of worked out the numbers of the very first ones. We just done a couple of flats in one in Dunfermline on East Port Street, and we could refinance and get all the money back out and generate £180 a month cash flow, or we could have made 28 grand profit in like a 5-week flip. So it was like, fuck it, like we're jacked a job where we're generating all this income. It's going to take a hell of a lot, £180 a month to try and make up anywhere near this kind of salary. So we're like, right, let's just flip these ones. So we ended up flipping one and kept 2. But when we realised where the market was going, we ended up kind of changing the trajectory completely. I just ended up flipping properties constantly. So it brought in this income and this kind of over trading kind of and because I had the money in the back, I would hear the money in the back, and we didn't really focus on cash flow. We always just focused on the bigger picture. Keep flipping on the properties to keep the business going and keep us going. And he was going to look at land deals and bigger developments and bigger sites. So it was always the bigger picture. And I was just doing stuff in the background, and we were starting on social media and building up a bit of track record and looking at private investor finance. But yeah, the plan completely went from one to the other. And I say the worst thing that I did at the time financially was didn't keep an eye on cash flow. So after a couple of years, my own cash was pretty much wiped out, because I didn't decrease my living expenses. Like, we still went on the holidays, we went on, like, family didn't sacrifice. Like, I'd made the sacrifice to quit offshore, but rather than adjusting my lifestyle to suit and saying, well, okay, I'm not making that salary, I'm making this, he just says, okay, we'll just keep going the way we're going, what we're doing, this will work its way out on the business we're doing. And they're kind of buying into your own bullshit on social media as well, because you're flipping properties and you're going, okay, we just made 30 grand on this one and this one, but we were over trading as well. We were looking at big commercial or residential developments and new build developments where you were paying for architectural fees and acoustic sound testing and planning an application for this. So as the profit was coming in through these flips, it was getting burnt away on deals that weren't happening in the background. And obviously we're taking up our expenses, and we're trying to market the network and go down to London for networking events. And there was a big expense in the business as well. So the first few years didn't go quite to plan.
It sounds like, even just describing it, like, I think with the hindsight now, good to kind of come on to like how that's changed, how the direction, your strategy and your view has changed kind of going forward. But the energy, you certainly sound like you jumped in with both feet. And the worst thing that I always think in life is not doing anything. Like, if you don't risk something, it's as Rob Moore says, you don't risk anything, you risk everything. But the fact that you've jumped in and you've taken action, whether you're flipping properties or holding for cash flow, ultimately you're still in the game and you're building your experience, you're building equity and almost cash flow in terms of knowledge and learning all that time, which kind of, might not be the financial cash flow that you're kind of talking to, that security blanket in the background. But it sounds like you're starting to, or you've started certainly over the last couple of years, you're starting to move more in that direction. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Aye. So I felt like I'd kind of, because they took the foot off the gas from my own personal properties in my own name, because the tax changes, stand limit companies, it was meant to build up the asset base, but we didn't. We ended up flipping. And like you say, it did give huge track record and social proof, because I hadn't been using social media for this purpose up until that point. So doing all these projects and posting them on Facebook and posting them on LinkedIn LinkedIn and Instagram for the last couple of years, you start to build up that kind of credibility, the social proof that look at all the deals you're doing, look at the stuff you're flipping, look at your before and afters. You're very capable of doing refurbs, and that did start to attract a lot of private investors, joint venture partners, and a lot of business. Then you kind of start to get the other pieces of the puzzle coming in. So yeah, it wasn't where I wanted it to go, but there was a huge amount of learning and growth and being in business for the first time. Because I think what I think my failure in the first few years was, I'd always had a salary for 15 years what I've been in property. I'd always had a salary for the first 10 years. So did I need cash flow? No, because I had a salary. And did I need to worry about what the actual numbers were? No, because I've got a salary every month. So this pot just kept on building. I just sold one in it. As much as I had a little spreadsheet, it wasn't that accurate. I kept note of the renovation costs of before and afters, but at the end of the day, it wasn't that accurate because it wasn't a business. It was me enjoying building up properties or flipping some, and the pot kept building. So there wasn't this kind of seriousness around it. So I think that was a real mistake as well, because you didn't keep an eye on the cash flow and in property, I put on my workshop as short term, medium term, and long term. If you don't have your short term income from your business or your job, create that through property, and that could be sourcing or the property workshops or the mastermind group, stuff like that. It needs to be something short term in there to keep you going, and so then the medium term pot for me was always the flips, the developments. That pot kept growing, that was fine. And the long term was always the buy-to-lets, and I hated the fact that after that kind of couple of years, or that for that few year period, all I did was rely on my buy-to-let portfolio, my personal name, to kind of sustain my bills, which I never liked in a position to be in. I like building that pot up. So if anything come up, or boiler repairs, roof repairs, needs a full refurb, you've always got that nice big buffer and cash pot on your long-term wealth to just go and refurb the asset, get it back up that standard, and it continually producing income. Whereas mine was all over the place. There was no short-term anymore. There was the medium term that was basically getting used to live off. So every time there was a pot of 30 grand, like, oh, that's paying our salaries and business expense for that period of time, which was just blowing. So there was no pot accumulating. We were just floating with the medium term, and the long term wasn't getting built up anymore, because we were like, oh, the market's changed. Let's flip loads of properties until the market crashes, and then we can hoover up. But as you know, the market's still going like that. So
yeah, I can so relate to that, Stephen. And I think as well, I was smiling when you were talking about it wasn't a business. You don't look back on that and say it wasn't a business you were running at the time. And I don't think, for Jill and I, we incorporated almost straight off the bat, although we've got some on our personal names. It was a similar sort of deal for us, even when Jill left her job a couple of years before me. And it's only probably since I left mine that you go, we need to protect that. We need to protect that long-term cash flow so that it can reinvest in the business and keep you buying units, keeping your investors happy, all that sort of stuff. So I think I kind of look back on ours. We've probably had the business for 4 years, but it only really started being a business this year. In a strange sort of way.
I've had the same. I took on my first full-time employee a few weeks ago. I've had this conversation with him a couple of times in the last few weeks that I've only felt like a businessman probably the last year, whereas I've always done side hustles. I've always had my martial arts gym, which was always passion. Wasn't for the purpose of making income. It was always a passion. I'm enjoying this business. It's fun. Then the mixed martial arts promotion. It was always, I love doing this. I love promoting this sport that I love. So it was always passion. But it was always businesses when you think about it. And even building the buy-to-let portfolio or flipping properties. It is business, but I've never ever treated it or never ever felt like an actual businessman. And probably until the last year, I'm thinking, oh shit, I actually do have a business. Holy shit, I'm a businessman. And it's that weird kind of realization that, all right, this is a bit more serious. I should have took this seriously a long time ago.
I suppose it's reinforced by bringing in
back up here, Stephen. So apologies, on you go, Chris. I'm just thinking we've just been chatting straight property for the last 20 minutes.
No. It's good. It's good. No, it's good actually. I'm just thinking that for your own business point of view, to bring somebody into the business as an employee, that's quite a shift as well. You're right, Stephen.
Sorry, mate, go for you.
I was just saying actually, so to bring somebody into the business as an employee, that's quite a seismic shift, isn't it? It's quite a difference to make into your organisation because in that actually, oops.
Yeah, absolutely huge. And I fought it for so long. You know, I don't need it. I can get through it. I didn't want the responsibility of the business. I always just thought, if I'm now starting to build the portfolio back up. There's assets building. I'm flipping. I've kind of got a little bit of a good balance in the business for short term, medium term, and long term, and I'm happier with the balance. And I'm like, I don't want the responsibility of an employee or a business. I don't want to create a beast. I don't want to have employees come to me. I always thought that, all right, Maya's been picked up from nursery today. It's Friday, 1 o'clock. I'm going to pick her up. No one needs to be there sitting with me. It's like, I want the flexibility, just doing what live life on my terms and the purpose that I've created it, not have to be in an office 9 till 5 because I've got employees and need to manage staff. But I quickly realised, this year, as the portfolio was growing in different companies and joint ventures and different ventures that I'm doing, you were getting pulled and pushed from every direction, everywhere, and there was no switching off. Trying to go on a little holiday away, like my missus was like, "Oh, that was good, you switched off." I was like, "No, I've been up since 5:30, doing emails." I woke up at 8:30. I've not looked at my phone or anything the whole day I'm with you. You're falling asleep at 9:30. I'm back working till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning again. So I'm getting 3-4 hours sleep. But she thought I'd switched off the whole week. I'm like, no, I've not. And then this realization came on that, shit, this is actually a business. Even things like managing, statements from letting agents, putting in checking the maintenance, putting in a spreadsheet. These things are all falling by the wayside because it's all relying on you. And as much as I outsource that side of the business, it still requires you to manage that. They don't work for you directly, but they're an indirect kind of outsourced employee of you if it's your letting agent or your builders and whatever you're using. So it was a complete changing kind of thinking behind it. Think, shit, this is actually a business, this is a property business, and it needs to be treated like so.
So what I was going to do is, I know we're talking about property and we come back to that. What I want to do is just take a bit of a segue slightly, because you mentioned it and I noticed it as well about your jiu-jitsu as well, about your passion there as well. And I love this as well because I've seen the stuff you've been putting out there about you're getting back into it. And my kids are doing Taekwondo as well. They've been doing it for about, I can't remember, 3-4 years. And it was a joiner that recommended it because he was saying it's good about discipline. It's good about giving them the confidence as well. If there's a situation in life that somebody's aggressive to them, they can defend themselves if they need to. And I love that concept. So you talked about that briefly. Do you want to talk about that passion you've got for that other part of your life as well?
Yeah, so martial arts is something I've always done since I was 4 or 5 years old. There's a brief period where drinking and girls took over at late teenage life where it slipped, but I'm sure we can all relate to that. And after that, it was always back on mixed martial arts, it was jiu-jitsu, it was striking arts and stuff. So there's always been a passion. I was obsessed with Bruce Lee when I was younger, and there was all it's been my whole life. It's been my whole kind of passion. And when I started to focus full time on the property business, and just a couple of years before I was offshore, I was always myself, my brother, and my dad. My dad started working off in Abu Dhabi. It was me and my brother that was running it, and I kind of stepped away and just says, like, you run that business, it's yours now, you crack on. And he went in a kind of completely different direction with it, and he went from becoming a joiner to making jiu-jitsu his passion and doing that full time, and I loved it. I thought, brilliant that we're both doing what we're passionate about. And when Maya was born and I jacked my job, I kind of kept feeling like I was quite aggressive nature. Like I'm a redhead, so I've got that fire, a little bit of temper, but I'd be losing my shit with people on site or trades or something that wasn't done the way it said. And I'm reacting, and I never react. I'm mellow, I talk things out. But I was reacting, and I said to my brother, I need to start training again a wee bit more. So I was always quite sporadically in and out, and I've never ever stopped, but started to go regular enough. And then obviously my brothers wanted to grow it, and I was needing this kind of accountability, and I obviously having a daughter was kind of this big, huge thing. I need her to do something. I need her to know that fitness, passion, like martial art, something is something you do in life. It's a way of life, like it's always been for me. And I thought that if it was me going to her uncle's place in the next kind of town, that she might not see it and might not be aware. So I spoke to my brother and says, well, why don't we start up a separate business for I'm filming one in my hometown. But I was very clear on not getting fully involved, because when it's something you're passionate about, you end up taking over your life. And now, as a family man and a business owner, I can't take over my life because I can't be there every single night of the week, and I can't be away at the weekends doing competitions and stuff like that. So it was like, to me, I set the kind of expectations of my brother right up front. I says, I can do 2 nights a week. I will teach classes in this gym 2 nights a week. I'll build it. I'll operate the business and get people running. You know, you take one, we can get guys covering other classes. But I'm doing 2 nights a week. That's what I'm teaching. And it was frustrating because we started it about 7 or 8 months before COVID kicked in and shut it down. So we were kind of closed there for longer than we've been open. But what the ethos and the how we kind of marketed it and the people that we wanted to attract around us, we attracted such a good base and a nice group of guys, and they're all guys that are, you know, my age. They've got young families. Like, there's no meatheads, there's no egos. They're just nice guys. We built up this phenomenal base really quickly, and it carried us through. It carried that business through COVID, well, like very well. And I realised the kind of importance of that kind of other stream of income as well. And so it ties in quite nicely. But what's getting me more and more is when Maya wants, like, grabs a little pinky and she wants to come in and she says, I want to come to jiu-jitsu with you, Dad, and it just kind of makes me well up. And I'm like, she's now seen it. So the purpose that I wanted it to have in my life, she and it's continued on. And I love teaching this stuff. I love passing this knowledge. But she comes with me and watches me teach, and you know, she's seen it as part of her life. And she's still, the last few weeks, actually taking part in the new kids classes, stuff like that. And I thought it was really cool because the coach that we employed in that business to take on the kids classes and beginners classes, he was referring to my brother as the coach, who, you know, the professor who was coming over to teach next week's class. And Maya's going home and telling my wife and saying, oh yeah, we've got this teacher coming along next week, and we've got to be on our best behaviour, and we've got to do this. She didn't realise it was her uncle. So, you know, so I didn't say a word. And then obviously I was in Aberdeen last week. She came along and got a little first stripe on her belt and stuff like that, and she was all proud, and you didn't even realise that it was going to be her Uncle Darren who was striping her. So it's such a cool wee feeling that you can now tie that into business. But an interesting concept that I might share with, hopefully no other martial arts owners are going to, business owners are going to listen to this and copy this concept. But I tied in business into starting up this gym with my brother. So we spoke about the outlays and what we're going to do to put in. And I said, well, if I'm setting up, you know, buying these properties with none of my own money and leaving no money in the deals, the same kind of concepts we're doing for the buy-to-let, I want to do the same with this martial arts business. So before we opened the door to the gym, 2 years ago, we had no money left in the deal. And my brother thought this was quite funny because we bounced back and forward, and we says, why don't we create up founding memberships? I said, well, so if we get founding memberships that are like, saw what the journey is, what my brother's been doing with martial arts, he's got good personality on social media, and he's changing lives through jiu-jitsu. Push on that, we'll get these people to come in, pay a lump sum up front. You're a membership for life. You don't pay any ongoing costs. You get your uniform, you get this, you get free seminars, you get this, you get that, you get this big package. Deliver it. So we signed up like 3 or 4 people straight away that paid this huge lump sum. So that covered all the refurb of the commercial building, the mats, the equipment, the space, the whole lot. So from minute one, the business was operating kind of in profit with none of our own money. So it was quite a cool concept. It was quite funny how you turned the concept of buying a buy-to-let with none of your own money into like a martial arts business. That was quite funny.
And I suppose it doesn't hurt for a revaluation as well at some point, you know, having those founding members and having that capital already squared away.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was a good feeling as well, because I didn't want to go down the route like we'd always done, and it's always been a passion business. So you end up using your own money, and it takes a long time to get that recuperate that income back. But the fact we've done it that way, the business is
resourceful. It's all the things that you were saying. You were saying you weren't at the start of your journey, but I think you've definitely found it. I'm really interested. Sorry, Steven, what was that?
You kind of have to be when your back's against the wall, you get resourceful. But when you've got that income or the money in the bank or the regular wage, you don't get resourceful because you don't need to. You don't need to worry about eating. You don't need to worry about the roof over your head. But if you put your back right against the wall, shit, you've got to make things happen, and you will make things happen. You always do. But it's getting to that stage.
I think as all business owners, we've now found that going through that process, and that is that kind of scare factor of actually, the buck does stop with you. Even though you've got a partner, the buck does stop with you. So that fear factor, you mentioned before about having the money in the bank, and I took redundancy as did Darren. Having money in the bank gives you that comfort, but it's false comfort. You've got to kind of work at it and really push for it. So I think that's fantastic. I love how you've taken a passion and a hobby to take it into a business venture. And your brother must love that as well, having some business knowledge coming in to support him as well.
Yeah, aye, he's loving that as well. And yeah, I'm kind of taking this concept as well from the membership of the gym. The gym membership is a membership building for the mastermind group that I'm doing in property as well. And that's all that thing kind of tying together, and the passion that you love when you do for that, for teaching on and passing knowledge and experience on, and seeing people's eyes light up when they get a point that you're trying to get over about business and buying property, creatively financing it, creatively doing refurbs to add the right value and stuff like that. So it's good. I love it.
Well, let's talk about that a bit just now then. So one thing I'm really interested in, because I see certainly there's some parallels, at least. Our daughters are the same age, just turned 5 this year, going to school for the first time. Our eldest anyways going this year. And I've kind of been struggling with this year in terms of figuring out, because I had a 5-year plan when literally same as you, holding Lauren in my arms and going, stuff needs to change, and I need to change. And we've had some success over the last kind of 5 years, but now I'm like, it was to kind of be where I am now. So now I need to reset, recalibrate, and say, well, what's the next purpose? So I've had to kind of spend quite a bit of time kind of recalibrating that. But I guess similarly, you were like, I need to quit and be self-sustaining and have that time with Maya, not miss out on family time. You've kind of achieved that. So what's next for you? What's the next level of kind of success? You're doing property education now as well. What's driving you right now?
I think I related to everything you just said, because I'm in the exact same position. When I quit, 5 years ago, at the exact same time, I had this kind of 5-year goal. But if anybody asked me what the goals were with business and what you were looking to achieve, it was always the same answer. In 2 weeks' time, Maya started school. I just wanted to have the freedom to walk Maya to school and pick her up and hear about her day, and that was it. And it's fucking so annoying, because it's right exactly what people say. The goals you set out, if you've got a plan and a purpose and you're driven hard enough, you will achieve them. So my goals weren't that big, were they? Let's face it. Like, you want to have a bit of freedom to walk your daughter to school, pick your daughter up. Like, that's cool. In 2 weeks' time, that's going to be achieved. But I'll have to do exactly the same as you, Darren, and really think about what I want going forward. And this year, at the start of the year, I sat down with Jerry Alexander, a kind of mentor of mine as well, and was asking him, like, what has achieved on this commercial space, and how am I going to stretch these goals and make it bigger, make the kind of hairs in the back of my neck stand up. Like, I've got a bit more freedom. She's now at school. She's more a working day. That gives me a lot more freedom as well to stop using her as a crutch and like, oh yeah, I pick her up from nursery a few days a week and I spend time with her. I don't use that as a crutch anymore. I need to operate at a bigger level. So yeah, I'm kind of tweaking that as well. And part of the property training side for me is I am enjoying it. I did try it through at the start of COVID, thinking that I needed this kind of shorter term income stuff, like more regular income, the mastermind group, and I was sourcing some deals which I liked, and I found that was a useful way of having some clients on that were paying you a fee for sourcing deals. But I wasn't that passionate about it, because if I'm finding deals, it's for properties, I was liking them for myself. Whereas at the moment that I'd done a workshop, just before COVID, I loved it, and I didn't think I would. I thought I wouldn't have enjoyed it, but I quickly realised that I'm so passionate about property and the stuff it can do and the positive change it can have on your life. And if you've got the right goals and the right strategies and how to do it, and when you kind of see that people's kind of clicking with that aha moment, like, holy shit, I just got the numbers, I just understand exactly how you buy property with no money, and they get it. Something like that really excites me, that you're kind of changing people's lives as well, and obviously selfishly it adds to your network. Like, if you're bringing these people to educate, you're bringing in a whole other network, and everyone's got gold. Like, everyone's got like huge gold in them, where it could be, they either have the ability to raise funding, or they have the ability to spot deals, or they have a good skill set on sites, or they're very good admin wise, and they can do paperwork and spreadsheets and create systems, and everyone's got that little bit of gold. So opening my network up to people that come to me to learn, I'm monetizing something that all it was taking my time away. Like, before, you were always replying to social media messages, and people would ask you a question about property and what you're trying to do, and I'm looking at this one, I'm looking at that one, and you wouldn't want to be rude, so you didn't spend and I worked out you'd be 3-4 hours a day replying back to messages on social media and procrastinating, and you're going, I'm wasting all this time giving people free education, and not, like, I could be charging for that for a start. So that was the kind of first brainchild of it. There must be a better business there. But then when I kind of realised how much a bad rap the property education space got, I thought, rather than being the one that kind of adds to the bitching and moaning or saying something negative about it, well, why not do something about it and do something, a tweak on it? So I made it affordable, but I made it very, very affordable compared to what you guys will have paid as well. So I made it very affordable, but also made it real, because I always felt like a lot of the big kind of trainers, I don't blame them, because you see how much money they generate in their business teaching it. Why the hell would you want to get your hands dirty and source a deal and find a property, add it to your portfolio and create £300 a month cash flow when you can fill a room and make 300 grand in a weekend? So you can understand why their business is like that. But I felt the moral kind of obligation. It didn't sit right with me, because you're teaching something you really don't know nothing about, because in this industry it changes constantly, and if you're not doing deals day in day out and understanding how the finance products changes and what's happening in the marketplace, your knowledge is completely outdated within months. So if you're not doing that regular, you're like a dinosaur in that space. And I felt like all the stuff that was getting taught was the theory-based stuff, and the stuff that I was going to add to the picture was the stuff that was going to plug in these gaps. So here's the theory of finding a property, but here's all the real stuff that plug in the gaps. Here are the case studies. Here's the stuff that you can pick apart the case studies and get the real goal that actually makes you take action, because it is doable and it is achievable, not here's the theory of it. So that was the kind of bigger concept and going down that space. And I did. It was one of these things in COVID. Let's try it, see if it works, see if I enjoy it. And to my surprise, I did enjoy it. I got quite a bit of heat on social media when you first put you're going to do it, and I was like, oh well, here it goes. I'm going to be one of the most hated people in property space going in this space. But I think doing it with integrity and doing it with honesty up front. Like, there's no, for the first 2 days of the last workshop last weekend, I spent 2 days kind of saying how hard it was, and it was always the hard points and the pain and the the mindset and how resilient you have to be and the problems you come across. It was doom and gloom for the first day and a half, and then it was like, no, but here's the results, and here's what you can do, and here's how you add in the money part of it. So yeah, I think having that real bit of education and not the hairy fairy bullshit to sell courses. I'm not going to be one of these and I get why they do it, but I'm not going to be one of these guys that's going to sell out and say how easy it is. I'll tell you what's possible, I'll show you what's possible, but you're going to get the real what hard work needs to be put in to achieve these things. And if you're willing to put the hard work in, then you can easily achieve it. Anyone can.
There's so much in there, Darren, isn't there? Like, because he's talked about hard work, he's talked about you can either bitch and moan or actually do something about it, and he's talked about the energy and making it affordable as well. It's just
and I can resonate, like, in terms of my own experience with education. It's like, yeah, was I sitting on courses that was just pure theory? Yeah, they had some case studies, but that's not helped me grow. So commercial property, I already, Jill sat on a course a couple of times. Now we're working with Jerry, hands-on, boots on the ground, walking around his units, over a prolonged period as well, which I think is really important. And I think there's definitely changes that needed to be made, and COVID sounds like it's brought a hell of a lot of change. You shouldn't be charging 10, 20, 30 grand to get some proper education when the majority of the theory is actually available online. What most people need is about management, their mindset, and the confidence that, look, you can go and do this. It is possible for you, and there's a network around you to be able to help you.
Yeah, and I that was kind of the way I put it across at the start of the weekend, was that most of this stuff is available online. You will be able to read the books, you'll be able to listen to podcasts, you'll be able to speak to people, you'll be able to find out most of this information. So I'm not selling, I'm going to teach all this, but most people don't know it anyway, and it's piecing all together. Obviously, you're packaging up and putting in that kind of consolidated 3 days. But like you said, it's the mindset, it's all the other stuff that goes around it, the stuff that theory-based training can teach you, what you need to overcome, what stuff you need to do. And I just think that it was outdated and needed a little bit of shake up on it. Yes, I'm not going to make phenomenal money from it. It's not going to be my sole business, that's for sure, because I'm so passionate about gathering assets and property and doing good development. So it's never going to be my business. But I think as a tack on, as an add-on for me, I think it suits me brilliantly, because it's opened the doors up for me to work with different people, joint venture partners, to do different flips on. So I think it opens up the doors to more people, because your network's so important. And my energy was buzzing the whole weekend delivering it, because you're in a room with people that have actually paid to sit in the room. You're networking with everyone that's like-minded, that have got the same aspirations and same goals as you. That's a rare thing to find, because when you're starting to talk to the people about their network, everyone's going, yeah, I'm going to get the piss ripped out of me for coming on this course, and the friends are going to be like, well, who do you think you are and what do you think you're doing and stuff like that. So yeah, it was so important to get everyone around the room and create that community and say, well, why don't you keep in touch with each other? You've got this little group chat, continue it, encourage each other. Like there's space for that.
And I've seen like some of the stories since the weekend. I know you just had one just at the weekend there, or just past. But I've seen your stories this week, and your energy comes across as like the feedback's been phenomenal. It's not just, oh, this was a great course, Stephen. It was, I'm out taking action. Things feel like they're starting to move for me. That's the stuff that kind of really brings you alive.
I had 2 guys on day 2 pretty much get deals on day 2, which honestly, you can imagine the buzz that I'm getting. One guy got an off-market lead in Ayrshire, a 3-bedded house. And I thought, bloody hell, because you've done something well on social media to find that if Darren and Gillian can't get that before you. But he kind
of might have been on the phone to Jill last night, actually.
maybe. I didn't actually say if you're looking for advice on the streets, go and give her a call. But he took action straight away after listening to it, and he said, look, I've got a call booked in for 2:00. Can you run over the numbers quickly? So he just kind of showed me these numbers, what I thought, and I said, look, you're spot on. If you can get it for that price range, you're in the money. And he come off the call 15 minutes, and I told the rest of the guys, by the way, Ross is away to go outside and go a call to the vendor. So when they came in, I stopped talking, and everyone just kind of looked at me. I'm like, so how did the call go? I was like, yep, she's wanting around that, and it was right in the price range of a no money left in kind of 3-bed house. And I was like, phenomenal. Like, take action. You've seen what's possible. And another guy was sitting there as well going, oh my God, I just worked on a flat downstairs and I spoke to the owner directly and she wants to sell it. And so we started appraising that one live on the deal. So he went back and phoned her that night when he left the course. And to see that buzz and to see people taking action straight away, I was absolutely buzzing.
See, when you think about it as well, Stephen, what kind of workshops or events can you be at where actually somebody takes action in the moment and then somebody walks in and then they become the hero in the workshop? So it's not about you teaching, it's about them. That's phenomenal.
It was results. I mean, I kind of share stuff on social media because the last one that I did was I had my opinion on we were technically in lockdown, and I still ran the event privately. We'd done our social distancing, we put them 2 meters apart, we put loads of procedures in place, but I couldn't put that on social media. I couldn't promote it. I couldn't get the guys to go. And I noticed a huge difference, and you guys will be exactly the same. If you can't promote what you're doing, how are they going to know who to work with, or what you're interested in something? So a couple of the guys had posted on stories on Instagram, tagged me, and I shared it. Their following goes through the roof, and they're like, bloody hell, my following's getting followed by different people in property and network. But what got was results straight away. One guy came in day 2 and says, well, I put that on the story. You had shared it. My friends, my cousins live in Edinburgh, reached out and says, well, we've actually followed Stephen for a couple of years, and we're away to go and do this, that. The next thing we're away to release fund, money from our house, and they basically got a joint venture partner or funded in his family that he was like, wow, if I never posted that story, I wouldn't got that. And the next minute, somebody else put their hand up and saying, well, yeah, I actually got something similar. And it was all these stories, and it was to the point where all we spoke about yesterday was mindset, taking action, doing the do, and people took action straight away, and they're already getting results after day 1. And it was such the buzz. It was a weird thing, and I referred to it on Monday morning as I don't know if any of you guys ever know a guy called Baz Rutten. He was the first ever UFC heavyweight champion. He's on loads of movies and that with like Kevin James, stuff like that. He's best friends with him. Right. You've seen him on movies actually. He's a Dutch guy, Dutch world kickboxing champion. He's the world UFC heavyweight champion. I done 10 days out in Los Angeles training with him like 3 times a day about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I was physically more shattered and more drained after 3 days delivering property content than I was doing that. Now, it might be my age and the fact I'm not in phenomenal shape anymore, but to keep that energy up in the room and hear the results like that and the buzz, I was sweating from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5, 6 o'clock at night when that's finished. It was to keep that energy and keep that buzz, delivering the content constantly. And when someone like Jerry came in and done like an hour and a half slot, or some of the people in my mastermind, my kind of network, Brian Wright came in and done his part on rate structure and the tax efficiency. You sat down for like a minute and you're like aching head to toe, like just with adrenaline dump. And I was like, it was phenomenal. I actually loved it. I thought it was the best one yet. And I thought I found my feet with this 3-day and the way it went, but it was really, really good. And seeing people getting results immediately, I thought that this is exactly what it's all about.
Yeah, well, you can tell even just now, Steve, like as I said, just your energy around it and how much it means to you and whatnot. And I'm sure we could go on and chat for hours upon this. But I guess you want to give a bit of a plug as to how can people find you if they're interested in, I guess, attending your workshops or just getting in touch with you more generally. How can they find you?
Yeah, so the more social media platform that I'm more active in is on Instagram. Steven Clarke Property. The Scottish Property Podcast, we release one every Wednesday. Myself and Nick just property chat, bring on good guests like yourselves and that, and talk, really good content.
I believe we've talked for an hour and not mentioned the podcast. Like, it's
what
a phenomenal podcast. Like, if you're involved in property and you aren't listening to that, then I don't know what you're doing, to be honest.
It's such a cool thing. I really enjoy the podcast. So that's a good way of chatting, of hearing what's happening in the marketplace and different guests' opinion and their journey. It's such inspiring when you get different guests on and hear different takes on stuff. It's really, really cool. I actually really enjoy it. So yeah, that's released every Wednesday as well, except from this week because Nick's on holiday.
No, it's been fantastic talking to you, Stephen, and I'm going to look with interest to see how your jiu-jitsu goes as well. It sounds like your daughter's going to become quite a champion as well at some point.
Oh God, she's a little wuss actually. It was quite endearing. Last week when she actually went for the first class, or 3 weeks ago for the first class, she didn't want to get involved with the stuff until we started playing games towards the end. I was standing with her and trying to encourage her, and rather than saying like she's tiny, and rather than saying I didn't want to get hurt doing it, she goes, I didn't want to hurt anyone. I didn't want to hurt the girl that I would have been doing it with. And I thought, wow. So yeah, I don't think she's going to be a champion, but she's got an empathy. She's got a nice soft personality about her. But if you can learn skills that when she goes out at 17, 18, I don't have to worry about her being out there. No, she can be
100%.
You've made me think about getting one of mine into that. I don't think we'll need to worry about Murray, but maybe Lauren.
Go for me, a good skill set to have for kids.
Yeah. Well, good stuff, Stephen. Listen, it's been a pleasure. Like, good catching up, and all the best for everything in the future, education-wise, but more so in the property space as well. So,
right, mate. Thanks very much for inviting me on. It's been a great chat. Loved it.
As always, thank you so much for listening to the Pop Pod this week. If you'd like to leave a review or share the podcast with others, then that'd be awesome. You'll find us on Instagram at the Pop Pod, and on Facebook we have a community group called Purpose to Progress that anyone can join. And we'll be back every Monday with a new episode, but until then, stay on purpose and we'll see you next week.